Hey, welcome back. It's time for Focus Africa. Let me also welcome back my co-host, Queen Celestine. Where she went, I do not know, but welcome back from whence you came, Celestine. Now, let's talk Uganda. Uganda is headed to the polls for 2026 general elections under a cloud of concern, by the way, and human rights group warn of rising repression, shrinking civic space, and also increased targeting of opposition voices. Now, the fear is that the electoral environment is being shaped long before, or was shaped long before the first ballot was actually cast. For Africa, Uganda matters. It's a regional power broker, a security partner, and also a bellwether for democratic backsliding on the continent. What happens there has implications for governance norms across East Africa and also beyond.
And joining us are Mwanase Ahmed, coordinator of the Pan-African Solidarity Network, and Job Kiija, executive director, Innovations for Democratic Governance. Mwanase and Job, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I would like to start with Kiija. Thank you very much. Kiija, first off, we're in the dark when it comes to Uganda because of the shutdown on the internet. And we're wondering what is happening right now. What's the latest you can tell us, please?
So I've been following the developments quite closely. The Electoral Commission has announced results about 4 times now, provisional results, and they will be announcing the final results at about 2 p.m. Ugandan time. But from what we are seeing, of course, President Museveni is being given above 70% so far, which is the highest that he has received ever in the past 4 decades of his leadership. And then Bobi Wine is at about 24%. The rest are sharing about 2 to 3%. Of course, there is contention around those results because there's no clarity as to where those results are coming from. The chairperson comes and tells you from 10,000 polling stations that we have received, candidate Museveni has this percentage, Bobi Wine has this percentage, so and so has this percentage, without telling you which districts or regions these results are coming from. So the mood in the room is one of doubt and suspicion, because it is very difficult for the agents of the different political parties and candidates to verify what the chairperson of the Electoral Commission is reading in relation to what they have received in terms of the declaration of result forms that they have. In terms of the candidates, since Bobi Wine cast his ballot, he has been under house arrest. His house has been under siege. Last night, a helicopter, they cut off, first of all, they cut off electricity supply to his house, and then a helicopter hovered over his house, and they wanted to arrest him. What happened is that there was a scuffle. They tried to break into the house, the police and the military, but the last I've heard from the son of Bobi Wine is that Bobi Wine actually managed to escape. So his whereabouts are not yet known, but the wife is still under house arrest. There have been a few fatalities during that exchange last night. I think about 2 people were shot and killed as the security tried to access Bobi Wine's home. But also in the wee hours of the night that were leading into yesterday's morning, the vice president for one of the regions, which is Buganda, of the National Unity Platform, which is Bobi Wine's party, his house was broken into by the security. Over 10 people were shot at and killed in the house because the security suspected that there was some independent tallying that was going on there. But also, as we speak, all the other vice presidents of the National Unity Platform have been either abducted or arrested and locked up in different locations in the country. Agents of the National Unity Platform, which is the leading political party in the opposition, who have been, abductions have been ongoing since, I think, over last week. And many of them that even managed to access the polling stations were arrested and a declaration of results forms confiscated from them by security or goons. So there is a huge shadow of doubt on the results that are being released at both presidential and parliamentary level in areas which were clearly opposition strongholds. We have seen the victory of the members of the National Unity Platform overturned in a number of constituencies, 2 constituencies in Kampala, where we knew from what we're receiving in terms of results that these were outright wins for the National Unity Platforms. These have now been given to the National Resistance Movement, which is the ruling party. But also, as we speak, the count of bodies, people that have been killed, is about 50 across the country. In terms of people that have been arrested that are affiliated with the National Unity Platform, we are now going to about 1,000. The arrest started way before the campaigns, and these have been ongoing up to date. As we speak, there are still abductions and arrests that are ongoing. A number of us have had to leave our homes because as civil society actors, we knew, we were tipped off that actually we were going to be arrested or abducted or even killed, like it has happened for other people. In terms of election observation, while there might be some international observers on the ground, like the African Union, SADC, and IGAD, a number of international observers did not find reason to continue observing Uganda's elections because of the manner in which they are conducted. And so you won't have the American observers or EU observers on the ground. Local observation since the last elections has been banned in the country. Organizations that are engaged in observation have been harassed by the NGO Bureau on behalf of the government, of course. As we speak, just this week, we had 10 organizations that were working on democracy and human rights just on the eve of the elections before the internet was shut down. Their permits were revoked by the National Bureau for NGOs. Organizations like mine were targeted since the last elections. To date, we are still in court battling with the closure from the government. Now, so there are a number of civil society leaders. You could have heard of Dr. Sarah Birete that were arrested just a week before the election, and now they are locked up facing fictitious charges.
All right, Job.
So that is the environment in the country at the moment.
Job, that was an excellent retell of exactly what's happening in Uganda. You've just given us a very big picture, especially with the internet shutdown. Now, I'm wondering what concerns, or rather what reasons the government has given for the internet shutdown, and will it still persist, and until when?
Of course, this is not the first time that government of Uganda is shutting down internet over the past 3 elections. In the first election in 2016, the social media was cut off. In the 2021, internet was totally shut down. And then this time around again, internet has been shut down. So for us, it is not surprising. It was just a matter of when. And of course, the reasons they are giving is security. But we know that the major reason for shutting down internet is really to hide the atrocities that are committed by the government during elections. You may recall that in the last elections, the government is talking about 54 people that were killed on the streets of Kampala, but through independent verification, we know that they are close to 200 that were shot and killed within a span of just 2 days. So the things they want to hide are things that are going on, like the siege on Bobi Wine's home, the intended arrest, the breaking into of houses of the vice presidents of the National Unity Platform, the killings, but also they want to ensure that there's no mobilization, that citizens are not connected, because, you know, internet is the safest way, the easiest way these days through which citizen mobilization is done. So they don't want any kind of mobilization. They want to be able to declare their results, whereby the independent results that have been picked by different actors are not able to be spread through internet.
Wow. Thank you, Job.
And like us, we are not sure how much longer this might go, but depending on the situation on the ground, if there's some sort of mobilization on the ground or pushback, it could go on for as long as that mobilization is quelled. But from our estimate, probably for the next 2 to 3 days, if things are normal. If they are not normal, internet will remain shut down.
Okay.
So Mwanase, hearing everything what Job has said, what do you have to say in terms of what the Ugandans are saying concerning the situation surrounding this general election at this moment? Mwanase?
Mwanase, we seem to be having...
My apologies, I was on mute. Thank you. I think Job gave a very comprehensive summary.
Yeah.
The thing that I would probably add is that before the 15th, there was also a lot of irregularities leading to the quote-unquote election. So this was a predetermined outcome that was going to be announced. There was a lot of denominations, fraud within the voter registrar, polling stations being put in military barracks, huge deployment of military and security forces throughout the streets of Uganda, creating a lot of intimidation. There was threats by the security agencies saying that voters that came out and stayed within 20 meters outside of the 20-meter radius of the polling stations, which is their lawful right, would be shot. So there's been a lot of threats, a lot of intimidation, and a lot of pre-rigging, let's say, of the that quote-unquote election. Members of the opposition party were denominated by the Electoral Commission, leaving space for NRM to go unopposed. The voter registrar had people who were deceased on it, had many duplicates, had children. So there was a lot of electoral malpractice even before this election day. So we understand that what happened on the 15th and the fraudulent results that are coming out are not reflective of the people's will of Uganda. So personally, I think from where we stand at the moment, there's a lot of support that we also need to give to the people of Uganda. They are being disappeared, they're being murdered, they're being detained. There's people who are still detained from 5 years ago from the election period who have still not been tried or charged, who are in remand. And Uganda is operating with impunity when it comes to torture, extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrests, and the East African, the African, and the global community need to also intervene in terms of their legal mandates, their organizational mandates. The AU, SADC, the East African community are all complicit in these crimes. And our call to action is this era of diplomatic observation and silence it must be over. And that's complicity to these crimes. So we really call upon the people of East Africa, the African continent, and the international community to impose sanctions, to call out this election because it was not free, fair, and democratic. It's violating many different charters, treaties, human rights laws, and we must also give the people of Uganda solidarity by action amidst these extremely challenging and repressive times.
Okay, so Mwanase, you've talked about, complacency and all that has happened. And of course, Job mentioned that, the shutting down of internet has not just happened now, it has happened before. So at what point do you think the Ugandans or people in Africa will say, Africa is going to take charge in terms of, democracy and everything? How do we move past this? If this has been happening and the president has been ruling for over 4 decades, what is the next step to break out of this continuous issue surrounding elections? Mwanase.
I think we're continuing to explore that question, which is if elections cannot bring change, which is very clear, they cannot reflect the will of the people and bring democratic change in these authoritarian regimes, what options are available? So I believe historically the role of other countries within the continent providing safe spaces, solidarity, support through legal action, through organizing, has always been a key pillar towards larger transitions of countries, but ultimately it is the Ugandan people who will continue to push back and fight for their country, their sovereignty, and their will. And I think we're seeing a different climate this year because all across the continent and globally, people are no longer willing to sit back and they're ready to fight for that change regardless of some of the consequences. So I think the reason that the regime is currently abducting, disappearing and detaining all of the opposition leaders is so that they cannot mobilize their people, because this year was about the protest vote. It was not just about the campaign, the vote. It was then about protecting the vote and demanding the victory. So we're observing as much as possible from a distance to see how the people of Uganda are going to continue to react as their victory, which they've rightfully earned, is clearly being stolen as they predicted. So I believe each country will also rise up, react, and take different paths in terms of fighting for their democratic freedoms and for their country. At the moment, it's very difficult to see. I know there are protests that are happening throughout Uganda. There's military repression, and we are just waiting to see how best we can support them while simultaneously continuing to push back to these regional bodies, continental bodies, and from where we stand, how can we protect them, defend their rights, and support them during this challenging yet important time to secure their country's future.
Thank you very much, Mwanase. Job, let me come to you again. Let's talk about the electoral process. With all the factors and everything that's going on in Uganda, everything focused on the election, one factor is the Electoral Commission. And my simple question is, how compromised is the Electoral Commission, do you think? Job?
The Electoral Commission, I think, stands between a rock and a hard place, because even the person that we thought was the leading beneficiary of the incompetence of the Electoral Commission has actually cast a vote of no confidence in the Electoral Commission. President Museveni claims that he lost over 2.7 million votes in the last elections, which were presided over by this Electoral Commission. Because of the Electoral Commission's incompetence. And I mean, he's the one who appoints the Electoral Commission. He gave it another term again to preside over another sham election. But he's the last person that actually had some sense of trust in the Electoral Commission, but he has also thrown them under the bus. So it is so clear that actors across the aisle from all political parties, in the citizenry, civil society, etc., do not actually trust the Electoral Commission. And this largely is because of the manner in which it has been behaving, but also the manner in which it is constituted. First of all, the appointing authority, who is the president, it pays allegiance to him. That is the first thing. And then if you look at the manner in which it does things, I mean, today I've just been telling you about the results that they are releasing. They are reading results and they are not telling you where these results are coming from. So you're not able to compare. They have procured a biometric voter verification kit, which failed in yesterday's election, yesterday but one, and it could not be deployed anywhere in the country. I mean, this is not the first time that this technology is being deployed. It is the third time. And you know, there's a lot of corruption that goes on around the procurement of that technology. It was used in 2016 elections. It failed to function. It was again used in the last elections, 2021. Again, it failed. And it has been deployed again in these elections, and again, it has failed. So for us, we look at this as just a conduit for stealing money by the Electoral Commission and NRM cronies. If you look at the manner in which results, even at different levels, whether it is a member of parliament level or local government level, are announced, when you talk to people on the ground, they actually show you that their declaration of result forms are different from what the Electoral Commission is issuing. The Electoral Commission, the voters register has been very, very highly compromised. The Electoral Commission is failing to follow its own law, because the law provides that candidates are supposed to receive the voters register on nomination. That is for presidential candidates. And then 14 days before the election, they're supposed to receive the hard copies of the voters register. The physical copies of the voters register were furnished to the candidates 6 days to the elections, and so there was no room to do an independent audit of that register. When we did an audit of the digital register, which they gave us, we found that there was an individual that appeared in that register 50 times, and so they could vote 50 times. There were over 1,500 multiple entries in one part of Kampala alone. Remember, we have 146 districts. In almost every district, there were so many multiple entries. 1 month, the law provides that on nomination of presidential candidates are supposed to be furnished with lists of polling stations across the country such that they are
Right,
able
Job.
to deploy their agents.
Job,
Yes.
just a second, Job. I'm very sorry. We're almost out of time. In fact, we only have about 2 minutes. But I really wanted to ask Mwanase one question. And the question, well, it extends outside of Uganda. We've seen Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, even outside of Africa, Nepal. We've seen a very strong push by the youth when it comes to elections. And I'm wondering in Uganda whether there might be the sort as well. Because there's a very big concern from the youth population regarding these elections. In fact, they are invested. So what happens if this doesn't go the way the youth proposed? Mwanase. You're muted again, Mwanase, sorry.
I'm so sorry. I think it's very clear that the majority of the Ugandan population is ready for change. It was very visible during the campaign period of Bobi Wine how much support he had from the local communities and the youth. And I believe that each country is going to have a different pathway to determination of their futures and to reclaim their power. It's difficult to gauge what's happening in Uganda now, despite the small clips that are coming out due to the internet shutdown. But I strongly believe that the youth, as well as the millennials in Uganda, are not going to sit back and allow for another rigged election. So despite the military pushback, the violence, the brutality, I'm sure that the youth of Uganda and the people of Uganda are going to continue pushing back, whether it's through the streets and continued other efforts. They're not going to allow their futures and this election to be stolen. The methodology, we'll have to wait and see, because not being a Ugandan, it's not within my capacity to say, but it's very clear that this has been the protest vote. They were to protect their vote and they were going to demand their victory. And that's not just from the leader of NUP, that's all of the supporters. So despite the repressive conditions, I believe that over the next 2 days, and especially today when the final results, which are rigged, which are not true, the fake results come out, we will see the people of Uganda take to the streets, push back and demand their victory.
Right. Now, Job, real question, real quick. From your view, what is one hard truth African leaders don't want to hear about elections?
I think the one hard truth is that a majority of African leaders, they're basically using elections to legitimize their occupation of their countries. So if you look at Uganda, for instance, elections are not something that Museveni believes in, but rather he uses them to legitimize his military occupation. And this seems to be across the board.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Job Kiija and Mwanase Ahmed, for joining us for this very interesting conversation here about Uganda. We'll wait to see what the results say. And, well, let's see where Uganda goes from today. Thank you once again. Look forward to seeing you guys back on Breakfast Extra, where we have such conversations to have.